This is part of Yonatan's, I think, plea. Try running your family decentralized. I think it's an error to try and decentralize everything. I don't think it's possible.
Welcome to XXIM Pod, your home of decentralization. Today, I've got with me Chad Barbarian. Welcome, Chad.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So, Chad, when did you discover Kaspa first?
Yeah, so I could go back a little bit. So I've been in marketing, media marketing, outreach, communications for probably 30 years of my life. The last 20 years, I've been working with Rhubarb Media. So that's our company. So we've been in traditional marketing in a small city in Canada. And we've just done branding and marketing for all kinds of companies, including local mom and pop shops to, United States Veteran Affairs. So around the world. And sometime in 2016, a friend of mine approached me and said, I have this project that I'm working a part of. It's a cryptocurrency project. I was like, I wasn't really into crypto at all. I didn't really know much other than Bitcoin. And he said, yeah, we just need some help marketing this pop machine, this soda machine, for this company project called Dash. Okay. And most people will know Dash. And so this is late 2016. And I said, sure, let's do it. And they were actually physically making the product and we were going to help market it. And so from kind of a side project I was working on with them. And then the Dash community blew up. And so that was a split at that time. And everyone went one way and the other. And one of the splits started a coin called Darknet. So it was a privacy coin. And this buddy of mine kind of went with that project. He said, okay, we need help. We need to brand this project. And I said, yeah, that's probably not a good name to move into, modern space, Darknet. Yeah, it's kind of scary. Anyway, so we started the process of branding. So January 2017, right, first month, we released all the stuff related to PIVX, PIVX. So it was a privacy POS coin. Okay. And we started marketing them. And that was the first kind of inroad for me into crypto. I did not take the coin when I first started working for them. I took cash and Canadian. But probably within a month or two, I was like, yeah, I think you guys are on the right track. I love the community. I love the brand building that we're seeing happening. And I started to push into that space. And of course, 2017 was a boom for lots of altcoins.
Very good year.
So
get into it.
Yeah. So I ended up getting approached by lots of projects. PIVX went from, like 3 cents in January to $14 in December. They were fair launched and everything. So it was a very decentralized fair launch project, but it blew up. 1,000 new projects that year. So I started getting approached by other projects, Internet of People, bunch of others. And then, so fast forward, I did take a break from that. A couple years in, things happened, drama, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then entered into a project called SpectraCoin. And they wanted to rename and rebrand, and we renamed them and rebranded them to Alias. Again, it was another privacy project. And so we were having fun with them in the community, building, doing some creative stuff, launching video channels and outreach. Right. And then kind of a few months in, the devs left. And so I was like, all right, so this is not going to work, guys. So thanks for bringing me in just to have it throw. But a guy that was in that project, Titorelli, probably, I think it was 2021, December, he said, I have this other project. I'm sort of been, kicking the tires. I think they need your help. I said, okay, who is it? He says, it's Kaspa. I'm like, oh, never heard of him. So basically started to engage. So January 2022, put a proposal together in February, March, and we rebranded that, probably within a couple months. We rebranded, we launched all the socials, and started pushing the brand. So that's 3.5 years ago.
2022 January is the first time you came across So you weren't part of DAG Labs, or you weren't coming from the crew of DAG Labs, right? A lot of core developers actually come from that background, right?
Yep. Just a couple months after the genesis.
Not many people know you've been, a driving force behind the Kaspa.org, Kaspa X account, and also you're running other socials. I believe there are other socials.
Yeah. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X.
Socials, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No. So what made you choose Kaspa, right? It was just say, hey, here's a project that someone came to me and I want to help them out, or was it a specific reason you wanted to work with Kaspa?
Very much so. I'm completely picky when it comes to projects in general. I'm very much, I'm kind of have an altruist philosophy of life. I'm here to help. I want to see projects that are going to do something good in the world and help people. And so I looked at Kaspa from a technology. I'm not a tech guy, but it seemed like they were, obviously cutting edge, innovative. But the big thing was, again, I'm very community centric. So meeting the community in Discord, that those early days.
Right.
And it wasn't all roses, like you come in as a marketing person and, you just get slammed. We don't need marketing. You got, and I was like, well, here's my philosophy. And then I met the devs. So Yonatan, just, through Discord, Telegram, started to read all their stuff, like even the white papers I read through, read probably all of their articles on Medium, and really started to sense quality people. These are PhD, academic leads, cited in papers, all the way back to Bitcoin. So it was pretty evident that, this is a quality project with quality leaders that were, I would say humble and approachable. And I do have an affinity for even with with cultures and other languages and other countries. And so I was really interested in these guys, these Hebrew bros that are from university level grads. And so I did submit a proposal to do a brand and initial website. That was pretty much it. And the community that was there at the time voted, and the rest is history.
So you just submitted a proposal. Hey, I can help you with the website. I can help you with the social. Or was it a specific thing the team was after? Because they weren't looking for someone, right? It seems like you approached.
No. Even it was. Through Tits Rally and others, they were just like, hey, we want to brand this. We wanted to have an identity. And so I initially was just going to do the brand, but I said, guys, the website, it's pretty plain, very technical. We probably should update it. And then, socials, not much activity. If you go back into early X, it's like, it's really rough. There's a few posts. And I said, I think we can accelerate this and amplify a really, approachable message. And so, we launched these other socials, took the management of the X and started to post. The rebrand was kind of the big story of the first month, and then ongoing. And then, we started to shape the brand narrative. And really it was around at that time. And this is a great point for people that are thinking about, starting projects, and especially technical. In the early days, there's no MVP. There's no minimum viable product. It's for Kaspa, they had a coin, and that was the product, and it was great. And the technology was great. But beyond that, everything else was the future. Like, we're going to build, we're going to rewrite the code. We're going to get smart contracts. We're going to move towards becoming, a powerful DLT. That was the vision. So at the time, you have to start with what you have, and you know that you're talking, year, 2 years, 3 years before you have something that's really, can take off. And I had a little chat with a guy on X this morning about Ethereum's, their push to corporate, status and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Ethereum's got years on Kaspa, and, if they want to pursue corporate partnerships, great. But I said, at this time, Kaspa is pretty young. And so you can't compare,
No.
a Bitcoin Kaspa at today,
Yeah,
we
of
got
course.
a ways to go. So in those early days, we worked with what we had, which was a very passionate community, and we had a coin. So that's why we launched merchants really early. I'm like, hey, does anybody want to accept Kaspa? And they're like, sure. And so really early on, we started a merchant to support merchants and get them on board. And then ambassadors was the next thing, because we needed education. We needed people around the world in the language, on the ground, reaching people at their level in their language and teaching them about Kaspa. And you can't just do that with a website or social media.
No.
You need people. And so that's why the ambassador program launched. Yep.
Yeah. I want to get to the ambassador program, but I think I want to backtrack a bit. Because I think, as you've already explained a lot of things, right? You've been, again, force behind a few different things, which I want to highlight here, right? One of the ones you're mentioning is the branding, right? So I wanted to ask, what was the reason behind the backwards K for Kaspa, which I think a lot of people perhaps are still wondering.
It's not backwards. Yeah, so the reverse K was already there when I arrived.
Oh, it was already there, right?
It was a very plain, straight, just a K, black K on white. It was, it was very simple, and I think it worked when they first launched. Right. So that was inherited. The philosophy around the backwards K and the word Kaspa was already planted, and so it was based on Kaspa means silver in ancient Aramaic. Kasef, you can find it in the Hebrew scriptures, the Bible. You can look it up. It's a word, and it literally means silver or money. So, and that was one thing that attracted me. I'm like, this is brilliant. I love the name. I love the cultural reference. I love the historical. So that was one thing. Now, when we took a look at the brand, the visual brand, I knew I wanted to do something unique. I wanted to bolden the brand a little bit. And I also wanted to give it a really unique shape. So I didn't want it to be like a K. I mean, just a K. So if you look at the brand, and the reason why it's reverse is if you look at the actual symbol, the Kef symbol, it was a reverse K. You've seen some of the ancient characters. It's a reverse K. So that's where that comes from. But what we did with the brand is we wanted to show that we wanted to give a nod to the ancient Aramaic text vibe. So it does look like an old character, it does look like that. We decided to add a little bend in the flat part of the K to show momentum or movement. And so that's why it's got that little bend shape. So it's kind of like an arrow. We're going places. It's going somewhere. So that's the simple part of that for that K shape. The circle, which traditionally in all crypto, you have a circle with a mark inside it.
Yeah.
And just something grabbed me about the whole idea of a common currency and the ancient coins. I researched like crazy, and you see all these coins online, and they're worn and they're chipped and they're busted, and there are no circles for currencies. I mean, it's worn, and so I thought, wouldn't it be great to express this whole like we want to be a common currency? Let's make the icon look like a well-used coin. So that's why there's some rough edges to it. And we got trolled a few times during the beginning. Like, can you guys can't draw a circle? Like, what's your problem? Hire a marketing guy, hire some graphic designers. These guys can't do circle. And I was like, that's on purpose. And so there's some graphics out there that show, kind of break it down, like the circle, the K, the arrows, the Aramaic, the actual script, philosophy. So that's where the brand came from. It's over 3.5 years, it's been completely embraced. Like you see it everywhere. When we go to events, people love it. They're wearing it. People have made their own clothing and brand stuff. And so it's everywhere. It's recognizable right away when you see it. There's no other kind of like brand that looks like it. And even if there is other K brands, it doesn't look like them, right? So we're really pleased with how it's taken off.
It definitely attracts you. It makes you think what it is like first time when you come across it. Like, so I 100% agree. And I think I love the story as you've highlighted here. Another part of the puzzle, perhaps that not many people are aware of, is that you were perhaps behind this narrative of powered by Kaspa, which is a beautiful narrative. I think once we have more dApps coming along and more things getting built on Kaspa, we'll probably start to use more of that in real life.
Yeah, so the idea behind that, again, early days, there was just the coin. So if you consider the two sides of the coin, you've got one side that's currency, and that was the strong play for the first year and a half, and because that's really all that there was. It was the redefinement or building that part of it, making sure the tech is there, making sure the currency is solid. So it was a coin. So once Rust was rewritten in Rust from Golang, you started to see the dev team grow. You started to see other entities coming in going, hey, we think something else is coming. We can understand that, smart contracts and dApps and other building things are coming to Kaspa. So that attraction happened. With Kef that came along, and then Kaspa X and the KRC20 movement. That again highlighted the more than just a coin narrative. And we started to see a lot of people using the brand Kaspa to market their product, like their secondary product, the KFCs, the KRCs, the KRCs first. And then, so I was like, hey guys, this is great. You're building on Kaspa, but you're not Kaspa. And the coin icon is really about the currency. So I thought, as I'm seeing this coming, I said, wouldn't it be good to have another layer, flip the coin over, and let's really work on the narrative around Kaspa, the distributed ledger technology.
Yeah.
And so the powered by Kaspa, obviously the Intel inside, you might have heard, you've heard of that over the years, like things like technology that is built inside something that you really don't hear about. And the Intel brand really did a really good job with the Intel inside narrative. Yeah. It elevated the product. Their companies went crazy. It just really helped a lot. And it also gave the people that were building on or using that tech a brand or a narrative to tell. So that's why we thought, okay. And then KII came along. So I think that the Kaspa Industrial Initiative was kind of the catalyst for me to go, okay, if all these things are going to be built, some of them you may never ever know that Kaspa is involved. You get your energy bill, and you're settling your logistics shipment, or you're doing your banking. Like, you probably would never know that there's this thing underneath that is called the Kaspa DLT, and it's the settlement layer. So I thought, why don't we give them a brand that they can market? It's not the coin, so it's not like we're powered by Kaspacurrency, unless it's actually the currency, but we're actually powered by the technology. So powered by Kaspa became a thing, and we launched it months ago. We just thought, like, here's a thing, use it. If you're building on Kaspa, feel free to use this on X, put it on your marketing, a little tiny tag, powered by Kaspa. Use it in X, and it hasn't overly taken off, but I'm seeing it being used. Kaspacom's using it. Other people are starting to use it, and once actual physical and digital settlement layer technology starts to take off, I can see it becoming really a natural progression of the story.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's early days, right? And I love the story, which I wanted to highlight, because you're already seeing the layer one. Because I think when the layer one is done, we think we can move on to layer twos. Then layer twos become the talking points. So what this has done for me, at least, is really highlighted the, as we say layer one, instead of saying layer one, you can now say powered by Kaspa, which I think is quite clever. Yeah. Because most blockchains don't have that. They don't say powered by Ethereum. It's like, okay, layer one Ethereum, is that boring? Powered by is quite interesting and exciting.
Yeah, it draws a line back to the original tech and brand, but still gives it its own narrative that they can be like, hey, we're really excited about this, ABC product powered by Kaspa.
Yeah, powered by Kaspa. No, that's cool. I want to ask you Ambassador program in a second, but how was your experience, working with developers? Because that's one of the tough things, perhaps.
Yep.
I know a lot of developers don't care about, I'm not saying all of them, but some people don't really focus so much. Perhaps they care, but they don't focus so much effort on branding and, these narratives that we're discussing here, right? So how was your engagement back in the day, right? 2022, right? When you early on started, when you were trying to establish yourself?
Yeah, and I'm in the camp that I'd rather the developers develop and not have to bug them. So really early on, I was looking for a mediator, someone to be in between myself and the devs to kind of like translate and, I call them dev whisperers, like go find what they're talking about and then translate that to me. And I really didn't want to work directly, and not that I didn't want to, but I just wanted them to focus on what they do awesome and best. But you ask about the relationship. The relationship's great. I mean, I've personally met, Michael and Ori and Shai and Aspect and like Anton and Yonatan. And I just, I could genuinely say I love these guys. They're great. They're, they will frustrate me, and I'm sure I frustrate them more by some of the questions I ask. But really, it's out of a really good intent. It's like, guys, when you do a post, like when say Yonatan does a post or Michael does a post, I mean they just posted it, and in their minds they're like, this is true and this is perfect. Most of the comments are, they love, people are like, awesome, and they're like, I don't know what you meant. So they're like cheering that on, but they're like, the context isn't there. What are the benefits? Like, so that was my, I guess my frustration in a good way to say, hey, when you do these posts, is there some way that, or somebody that could help me other than Chat GPT or, some AI to take what you've done and move it into human speak, and also help people see the features through the benefits. And that's the biggest advice I give to tech companies when they're talking about marketing. Yeah. Don't just promote features, because you'll only be speaking to 1% of your audience. You need to express the features through benefits, real world application, problems that are being solved. And that's the win. And so that's been my, I would call it a struggle, but it's just, it's part of working in tech. If you're part of any technological, even physical, like, I don't know if you ever watch Orange County Chopper. So this is a company that builds motorcycles, right? And the designers and the engineers are like this.
Yeah, of course.
Because the designers are like, oh, we want to make these curves. We want the bike to look like this, and it's so cool. And the engineers are like, it doesn't work that way. You can't bend metal like that. So no, you're an idiot.
Call it healthy fight,
Yeah. So that it's a really good tension between the idea of creating a narrative, reaching the audience, and keeping the tech and stuff true. And I mean, that doesn't change. But how does that come together and mesh so that the adoption percentage is bigger than that 1 or 2% that geek out on cypherpunk, narrative. So it's a really good conflict to have. And I mean, I stress about it, but at the end of the day, I'm like, this is what it's like to work in a the number one blockchain project in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But in terms of process, what was it like? Did you feel initially there was a pushback, or there was like, hey, look, we don't understand what you're trying to do with the branding or what you're trying to do with the narrative, like, and what was the process like? Because this is fascinating for a lot of, KRC20 projects or the layer 2s that will come, because they're going to go through the same process and pathway. So I'm trying to find, how early days of marketing versus technology worked.
Yeah. And it's early on, there was some pushback, from core team as well. We're like, it's not like they mean it to the extent where it's like being mean, like, we don't need you. We don't need your marketing. We don't need the brand. It's just, and I understood it from their perspectives. They just want to develop. Right. And so I was like, trust me. I said, give me, I think I posted this in Discord years ago or something. And even in my proposals, I said, for me, it's a 5-year plan. That we're going to try and build the narrative, work with the community, do a lot of education, move into, to working with influencers and pushing the narrative out into the globe. Once there's a DLT that's worth developing on, then we'll like turn the corner and now start talking about the dev movement and on and on and on. I said, so we're at 3.5 years in. And we've turned that corner to now, and I posted this on Kaspa Commons this week about the next big wave of action within the Kaspa community is the developers. So now we've turned the corner. If I started with that year one, obviously the core would be like, yeah, keep it going. I'm like, yeah, but that's not what we're building on, and we don't have that right yet. There's a handful of developers, and the product isn't. You can't build on it quite yet because you're still, changing the code. Rust Rewrite was the first kind of like layer of code that I think opened the door for developers to start coming in and kind of seeing things and take a look. And then obviously the KRC20 narrative. And then with that comes what's being done with Crescendo. And Crescendo and all the KIPs that were entered into Crescendo, so many of them are brilliant for developers, right? It's now become, it's enabled the developers to build. It also includes, MEV avoidance, and like there's so much about what's in Kaspa. I call it Kaspa. Well, I think it's it's Crescendo 1.0. I think Yonatan calls it Kaspa 2.0. And I agree. I said, this is the next click of where Kaspa can go. And I think we're entering into the era, the epoch of development. And that's going to be exciting. But yeah, early on, it was like, marketing. And, I just said, hey, listen, just trust me. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. And let's see how it goes. And obviously the first year and a half, I mean, from a price perspective, people are like, oh, marketing's awesome. I'm like, you can't directly correlate 20 cents to our work. I said, but you can collate the ever-growing community, the passion that's coming to the project, the developers that are coming to the project. I said, all this is part of the natural growth of a tech company that is coming into its own. So I think Kaspa right now is probably, I would say it's adolescent. So it's going through its adolescent stage. Hormones and all the things that happen to our teenagers. It's crazy. It's eclectic, but now it's starting to settle. And with the advancement of Crescendo and the new narrative of like, this is the developer's time. And so that's where we're excited.
Awesome. That's amazing. And the third thing was the ambassador program, which I think you initially started, you got Luke on board, and then you perhaps took on a different position afterwards, right? So what was the thinking behind it? Was someone like at that time doing it? Were you looking at some of the project we came across and you're like, okay, we can replicate?
So I did model it after what we've done with a couple other projects. And the reason why, but not many, if I would say hardly any projects did the ambassador program like we did with Kaspa. Because it wasn't like traditional when you say, hey, do you want to be an ambassador? Like, yeah, I've got an X channel. I've got a YouTube channel. I can show, I can talk about. It's like, no. That's not what this program is about. This program is about people in their town on the ground, meeting with people, shaking hands, looking in their eyes, and teaching them about Kaspa. Like true ambassadors, like brand ambassadors in the corporate world. They go to places and they set up and they express and they engage and they evangelize. And that's what the ambassador program was rested on. And I did that with a lot of things that we've done with Kaspa and other crypto projects, because what used to happen and what is traditional within the crypto land space is not that. And I feel like, and this is not a diss against Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I mean, we stand on their shoulders. The Satoshi consensus and everything is like brilliant. Yeah. But I think what happened is they leaned so hard into the narrative that they started with, which was kind of like, everything was anti-government, anti-banks. and good thing, because the economy was in the
2008,
and
2009.
2008, 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So I commend them for being like warriors of that, but they never turned the corner to being accessible and something that could be adopted, and they lost sight of the vision. So the P2P digital currency, right at the top of the freaking white paper.
Right.
This is our vision, is to be a P2P transformative transaction coin. And so what happened 16 years later, with little traditional marketing, with little engagement, they became maxis, and they kept, instead of like opening up and saying, "Hey, come in and help us. Let's work together." They almost became a little closed, and they're like, they took their technology and they kind of like held it tight.
Right.
And so after 16 years, we have a project, a coin that is globally known. Good for them. Yeah. But from a vision standpoint and a mission standpoint, useless. They did not fulfill their vision. And I don't think, useless is that's a harsh word. It's still very useful and as a store of value. And the world knows about it. So brilliant on that. But what we wanted to do with Kaspa and with these other projects that we were part of is early on, make it accessible, and also, make it approachable. So that's, to be approachable means that we can't lean too hard on the tech so hard. We need to, but we can't lean so hard, because you're speaking to a fraction of the market, and we have to open up to other users. And the actual, when you think about marketing or outreach, it's important to keep the end user in mind. And for Kaspa, that means, I kind of broke them down into six user groups. The first is the developers. And when you talk about end user, I think a developer is an end user. It's also, they're the ones that build stuff. So developers, I call them makers, right? So there's an M thing going on here. I keep it memorized. So makers. The second would be merchants, and they are probably a major end user. And that means mom and pop shops all the way up to corporate using Kaspacurrency, right? So that's makers and merchants.
Yeah, you mentioned merchants before. Do you know how many merchants actually using Kaspa?
Thousands. We don't know, because with apps and plugins like CoinPal and others, we're on those apps, and so a lot of people use it. On the website, we have a small directory. There's 100 plus merchants around.
Yeah, that's very
and it's fine, but I know there's a lot more. So so the end users, makers, merchants, I call the entrepreneurs or startups mavericks. So these are people that are launching products and companies, based on, like, powered by Kaspa. So they're an important user group that we have to market to. The other one would be miners. Obviously, miners are our key element, and we need to reach out. We need to embrace. We need to market and show outreach towards the miners. That's critical. The other is general users or movers. So these are you and I. These are people that are in the community. These are people that are investing in it. They're general users, and they're passionate, and it's a big percentage of user groups. And then the last one would be messengers. The ambassadors are they're kind of a user group, but I don't necessarily
they'll
call
in somewhere
end user. And so I forget if I missed. Did I give you six?
I wrote down, I think 5 or 6, but I think you got the point across.
Anyway, you get the point. There's all these, and I'm going to actually express this in some infographics and stuff later on on the Kaspa Commons channel. You'll be able to see it. We're actually creating avatars and characters for each of these user groups, so it's going to be fun. But you have to keep your eyes on those end users, and that's how you market towards. Whereas I think what Bitcoin did was they kept their eyes on the technology, and they kind of like let go of the potential. And I think I researched, it's 0.007% of Bitcoin merchants use Bitcoin in the US.
I was saying I would argue with that statement, because when the state nation states are starting to use it and putting on the balance sheet, I think
Totally.
they've
As a store of value. As a store of value.
Or
and so it's becoming useful, but not to the original vision. And I think Kaspa's vision is to be a P2P transactional currency and also a store of value. I think we can still have that narrative, but also it needs to be that powered by Kaspa, that settlement layer, the DLT. And I think we can amplify those two sides of the coin by pushing in and supplying and supporting and educating these 6 user groups for Kaspa. And that's what we're going to keep rocking on.
No, awesome. I think these are such a good initiative. So you already mentioned, right, like your Kaspa Comms that you have launched a couple of days ago. We saw it. Is it called Kaspa Comms?
Kaspa Commons.
Sorry.
Commons?
Yeah.
Commons is a place that's not owned by anybody, but everyone uses.
Right. So Kaspa.
So it's a real Commons is like you go to a central park. That would be a common place, and you could call that a commons. You go to walk in the woods, but it's spaces not owned by anyone, but used by everyone. And so I thought I wanted to create this town, this kind of like village vibe. We all live here. Nobody owns the whole thing. That kind of idea. So that's why Kaspa Commons was created.
That's right. Cool. There was a post Yonatan wrote on the 1st of May, and I'm just going to read the title, right? Some more context into core issues of Kaspa. That was his the title of his post. And then obviously the key issue there was, Kaspa X, the official and unofficial X, centralized, which obviously caused a lot of debate in the community, right? There was a lot of back and forth from a lot of people, a lot of sides. How do you what's your take on his post that Yonatan wrote? Anything that stood out to you and wanted to highlight?
We've been going through this for a month or so, but it's actually been a couple months in the making. I would say I respect his opinion. I think what he expressed in his heart is true, and I think that's important. And to validate how he feels, and even some of the proofs that he would say back up his argument. Obviously, there was some pointedness towards like about our work. So from a professional standpoint, that doesn't feel great. And I'm I take things to heart. So obviously I took it personally as well. And because I respect the man, I respect the cores, and I've met him. We've had some really good talks. The first conversation I had with him, we started talking about scripture and like the word, words and all this stuff. And so I think we have, my mind is not at his level, but we really, I think there was a respect there. So when I read that, there was a little bit of that, from an emotional standpoint. Right. But, and I would say, categorically, I would, to some of the arguments I would disagree with, but I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. So when that was written, there was also a group that was put together to figure out what the transition could be. I was presenting the argument like, here's the metrics, here's the facts, here's the growth, here's the benefits of what we've done. So as opposed to like what could be wrong. And I think a lot of the thought process was about the fear of the future. Like, we're afraid that if this keeps going, something could happen. So, which is good. I mean, you want to be proactive when it comes to messaging and communication, but we've been at this for so long, and we understand it at a really deep level that I think what we're doing was good for the project. Right. That said, not perfect. And, obviously, some mistakes could happen, but overall, the communications was not centralized. It was a lot of people working together. I work directly with the devs when it comes to any tech or update content came from them. And I work with other teams, when it comes to like vetting content. I was like, hey guys, what do you think? So it wasn't just me with my hand on the steering wheel doing my thing. It was a huge effort. So some of the perceptions were, I think, we're a little off, but that perceptions are real in those people's minds. So I took the idea of like, okay, how can I help with this? In the end, I decided probably not a good fit to completely cram myself into this narrative that they like to create, and it's not a bad narrative. I actually feel like we've been expressing the narrative. It's just timing. It's just the maturity of the project.
Sure.
We're turning towards that phase now, and like I said, it's going to be the year of the developers. So, I just decided, probably a week or so ago, I'll make a plan, and I feel the benefit of what we're doing is I think is still huge, and we're hearing from a lot of people in the community to keep going. But I'm not gonna do it at the expense of drama publicly. And you've never seen a post from me, arguing anything online. A lot of the conversations have been behind the scenes. And in the end, I just decided I'm going to keep moving forward with the mandate that we received through the proposals that we presented and the 3.5 years of experience to start a new channel called Kaspa Commons. Right. It's an extension of the Kaspa X. It's pretty much everything that we've posted on X plus, and the plus is I can add a little more personality to the post. Yeah. Kaspa Commons is a community, so I can use words like we, and if you look at the Kaspa X channel, it was very faceless. There was no personality. It just stated facts, and there was some commentary here and there. Maybe that's where people got off on, but mostly it was just straight up facts. To me, it was a very boring, channel. Other than creators look good and the community was educated, and the highlighting of like ambassadors and events and merchants and all that stuff, I think is great. But I think with the new channel, they want to kind of strip it back. So with that, I'm like, oh, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let me do this channel, and I'll still incorporate developer stuff and updates and all this stuff. But I'm really going to continue to push the narrative of all these user groups, which includes the merchants, the miners, the mavericks, everybody. And the makers. So I decided, I just do that. It's kind of like it's not a step away. It's not a moving away. It's not a step back. In fact, I think it's probably a little bit of a step forward. So even though I didn't fully embrace and agree with how it transpired, I'm a very much of a let's make the best out of things. So, so when the world gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so we're gonna push on. We're gonna push on, and I'm still very much hope that the emotional side, the relationship side, can be healed. But from a project side, I would say, hey everyone, get excited. We're turning the corner to the developers, era. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that all the other stuff fades. It means it accelerates as well. In fact, it amplifies. And so you're going to see more Marathon Digitals and Grayscales and all the Kai initiatives start to see the light. You're going to see more merchants and corporate entities accepting Kaspa. And you're going to hopefully see more ambassadors and education happening around the globe through meetups and conferences, and groups like like Kef and Kai and others. I think they're gonna come to the project as well. We're gonna see more foundations come in, and I've talked to the developers. They're still cool with me asking them and getting intel from them, but there's gonna be a change, and also I do want to say. And this is part of Yonatan's, I think, plea, is that we want to remove the perception of centrality. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, there's roles that we have. I mean, if you go to the website, we made up our names, marketing manager, business developer, guys like Wolfie and others, whatever. And so that will be stripped away. I'm gonna step back. The community marketing fund will be phased out. Officially, but there'll always be opportunity to donate to our efforts, and that's gonna come in play probably in a month or so. So officially, when somebody says, "Oh, who's the marketing director for Kaspa?" I hope they don't know who that is.
Yeah, that's decentralized for us and for everyone.
Yeah,
who understands that. Just few questions, just few things came up around the things you mentioned. Like, I mean, what you've just highlighted is such an important. It's a journey that you've gone through, and again, we don't like to sort of gaslight things. We don't want to go through. I think we all love the project. We all support all sides of it. But there is obviously a personal angle that we will all want to support a truly decentralized project. But some of the things you highlighted, which I thought it would be good to just pinpoint for people that perhaps are new, not aware of it, right? So, what was who was behind the X in the past? I've mentioned that you started it, you were running it, but were there many people that were actually running it? And who's going to run post this, not departure? I wouldn't call it departure as you put it, but who's managing it now?
Unknown as to who. I think it's probably going to be a group of people.
Right.
I know that in our chats we've had discussions about aggregate content. So probably a lot of retweets and stuff that we're doing in Kaspa Commons is similar to what they'll be doing. It'll be amplifying the community, those that are putting out good quality intel, because a lot that's out there is it's retweet, it's copy paste, it's everything about everything is one thing, 10 BPS or whatever. So we really want quality. So I think they're going to amplify those. And if you look at the Kaspa X channel, many of the big projects have 0 people that they follow. The Kaspa X, I think it's around 260 or 270 people that I've followed. And that's the reason why, is because we want to amplify the content that's being pushed out there. And there's some really quality, influencers and so-called KOLs that are doing well. So the group, I think it'll be a group of people. I know Yonatan mentioned some AI involvement as well, aggregating content via AI. That can be done well if it's done well. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be available to consult. I hope that we can, retweet each other's content, and it's not really each other. It's like we're all on the same team. We're pushing out the content that we've always had plus. And I think it'll be complementary. And so whoever is running it, again, it's a decentralized project. So, it moved from me and a bunch of people to somebody else and a bunch of people. So there's really there was no centralization. And the new team, not a team, because we don't call people teams, will take it and run with it. And just celebrate it. I mean, we're pretty proud of almost 250,000 followers. I think when we started, there might have been 30K or maybe 20K on X. And that's not, obviously not our credit that this happened, but to a big degree, our work and the efforts of the community, ambassadors, and all the other parties have built an amazing, I would say, decentralized aggregate news channel. So I hope that whoever those of us that are in the marketing world and do socials, they become our babies. So I'm handing over the baby now an adolescent. He's a teenager, so he can leave the house anyways. But I'm handing it over, and so there's a little bit of please take care of this. And I'll start to, I'll birth this new channel and curate it and build that community. And it's going to be very much the same community back and forth, So I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly who. I think they're trying to figure that out, but, kudos to them. And I hope all the best.
Yeah. I'm interested in personally learning, what are the ways they actually get to the outcome without being centralized, because I think that's fascinating, right? We've interviewed a lot of DAOs that truly are actually working as decentralized organizations, right? And even they actually have a lot of things to say about how hard it is to be truly decentralized.
Yeah. So I mean, we talked about doing another show on this, but I can probably speak briefly to it. I think it's an error to try and decentralize everything. I don't think it's possible. I think decentralization initially, when it was first became the buzzword, back in the day when maybe Satoshi said it, and it's been a thing forever. But systems should be decentralized. Wherever there's a potential point of failure within a system that could, wreck a lot of things, technology, whatever. I think it's important to consider what decentralization means. But when it comes to communications and outreach, and people doing a good job at what they're really good at, there needs to be what I call coordinated management. And I think that's part of life. That's how the real world works. You're pretty young. I don't know if you're a dad yet, but, try running your family decentralized. Your kids grow up and you're like, hey kids, you can do what you want. You could, you're your own autonomy, you can whatever. And you know what? My rules don't really matter because, we're decentralized and we'll figure this out. We'll take a vote. Do we eat candy for supper or do we have meatloaf? Right. Yeah. And so you can't run, certain systems cannot run on 100% pure, decentralized model. You have to, I think there's a separation there. So that's kind of my short take on it. I'm sure I could probably rant about it forever, but I think that, and I don't believe in centralization either. I don't think it needs. I also I'm against democracy. I think the everybody majority rules is a bad idea. So I think there's a lot of discussion that we need to have around how we do voting and how we allow people with the brains and the talents and the experience, let them lead and trust certain people to manage certain aspects of certain things, and just make sure that at some point that can be passed on. Like obviously, if they hold keys, I didn't have control of the X account. If I logged out, I'd have to go through 2FA, and somebody has a phone and they have to give me the code. So I think there's ways that you can semi-decentralize a coordinated management effort. And that's where, I love to talk about this with people about the maxi decentralized, mantra.
Yeah, I think it's such an important topic to discuss. And we've tried to have the discussions by collating like 6 or 7 DAOs and came together to discuss. And, it's actually a real challenge because as you explained, a very good family example, right? You can't run communities by just asking everyone, right? And it's not just because you can't trust them. It's also that there is an information asymmetry, right? Some people will just not know what exactly needs to happen, right? They just don't have the capability to understand the technology or the depth of the knowledge where you have to make the decision, right? So I think that challenge is definitely a real challenge when we talk about decentralization. And not many people that perhaps use the word actually understand the challenges. So
I think, that's it. Define it, and then we can talk about it. But
it's a real challenge, and I think although we love decentralization, we all of us, we don't want to go back to the central world of a central banking system and what happened in 2008.
100%.
We think we need to find a way that's better for decentralized world, right? And I think perhaps that's what you're explaining it in your own way. And again, love to have that this discussion, like a longer discussion, perhaps on that basis. Any closing thoughts, Chad?
Kaspa Commons is just one. It's one of the channels that we're gonna push content out. There's other channels that are still going, socials, and people are managing those, and they're gonna the Facebook page, the LinkedIn page, Instagram page, the YouTube channel, like all these other channels will continue on, and they will share content between whatever intel's out there, whether it be from Kaspa Commons or Kaspa X or Kaspa Fax or whoever. But I'm also going to keep working with merchants, and we launched a new podcast called Kaspa Accepted here. There's been 3 episodes. I'm going to keep that rolling. So probably monthly we'll meet new merchants. And these merchants are not just merchants. I mean, these are ambassadors, these are educators, these are brilliant minds creating 360 economies around Kaspa. It's amazing. Still going to work with ambassadors. So anyone that needs support from a design perspective or resources, print material, we'll still offer that support. And I'd like to see more ambassadors, come on. And that it's kind of in flux right now, with nobody coordinating it, managing it. But there's still a big group in there. And I think I'm going to take some time to curate and to be part of that community and to do what I can to amplify the need for that, personal, on the ground, in the language. Love to see more translations happen with all the materials like the battle cards, etc. So very much lots going on. Kaspa Commons is just the stage. It's not everything. Although I'm a prolific poster, so you're going to see more posts than what we did on Kaspa X.
Right.
But yeah, there's lots going on, and yeah, obviously I have a handful of other projects and companies and products. So yeah, but we're looking forward to the developer, that developer transition to really accelerate and amplify dev community. I was just talking with one of the core devs about Kaspa U. It's a concept that we came up with, a couple years ago in talking with the College DAO crew. And that's like creating a tie between Kaspa and the academic world and, getting students involved. I mean, if you're going to learn about blockchain in university and college, Kaspa better be on the curriculum. And talking about that, as well as, events and hackathons and other things that will build the soon to be developers. Like we can't just rely on developers that are here, but we need to raise them up. So really excited about seeing, something like that come up. And I can't do, it's a massive job. So hopefully, people will rise up around that, whatever that becomes, some sort of developers hub. And I'd really like to see Kaspa be a sandbox for developers and a launching pad for entrepreneurs.